Lily the Clay Wonder. Did you know that the discovery of pottery dates back a considerable amount of time and that clay vessels, being harder to transport, are specific to sedentary communities? The oldest clay vessels in the world were found in Japan, belonging to the Jomon culture. Pottery was then independently discovered in other parts of the world. It appeared in the settlements of the Sahara oases, then in the Fertile Crescent in southern Anatolia, spread to the Balkans and further south, reaching Ethiopia. But pottery also appears in India and on the American continent. Initially, pottery did not require any specialization. Anyone could shape a vessel to be fired in an open flame. The major change, however, occurred with the discovery of the potter's wheel and kilns for firing pottery, which could reach very high temperatures, up to 800 degrees Celsius. Moreover, the construction of vaulted kilns allowed for even higher temperatures. The little girl I want to tell you about today once found a small statuette while playing in the field. It was about as long as a finger and as thick as 2 or 3 fingers. It was made of clay, fired but probably not at very high temperatures. Excited, she took it home. Her parents looked at the statuette, but didn't know what it represented. It resembled a bird with a sharp beak, but it also seemed to have 2 human-like arms. The neighbors said it looked like a goat without horns. No one was particularly fond of the statuette, but Lily liked it. She placed it by her bed, and every night before falling asleep, she would look at it. To her, it seemed to represent a loving mother protecting her little girl. One evening, as she was getting ready for bed and staring intently at the statuette, as she usually did, a strong wind suddenly blew through the room, and in an instant she was transported to a beautiful field like she had never seen before, filled with flowers. These flowers were much more colorful and fragrant than the ones they had at home. But what surprised her even more was that when she touched her head, she noticed she had grown a hat like a mushroom. Indeed, she looked like a mushroom with a red cap and white spots, and she was suddenly wearing a purple dress with white spots on it just like the hat. Around her neck was green. And she wasn't alone. She saw a little girl smiling at her, who looked just like her, a friendly little mushroom girl. What they talked about, I don't know, but they quickly became friends and began to roam the forest and field together, playing a lot. They could do this because not only did they have legs and could walk, but they were little mushrooms that could also fly and walk on the treetops if they wanted. When it was night at Lily's home, it was day there. So her first night was her first day spent in the mushroom world. In fact, this entire world was inside the statuette she had found and looked at every day at home. When it got dark there, Lily had to go home so her parents wouldn't notice her absence. This enchanted world was accessible to her, only if she didn't tell anyone about it. When she was ready to leave, a wind would come and take her back home to her bed. Lily spent many nights, or rather many days, in great joy without telling anyone about the enchanted world of the mushrooms. Then one day something terrible happened. She and her mushroom friend went into the forest where they had been many times and knew the place well, but they got lost. They couldn't find their way home, and it was already starting to get dark. Lily needed to return home to her parents. If she didn't return in time, her parents would be scared. There was also the danger that in their search for her, they might throw away or break the statuette, which could prevent Lily from returning home. So they were desperate to find a solution. They ran down a path that seemed familiar, but it was not the right way. They ran to the left, but that wasn't the correct path either. They climbed the trees to see further, but since it was already dark, they couldn't see anything. They called for help, but no one heard them. They started to cry, but that didn't help either. Suddenly, they encountered a man. Overjoyed to finally have some hope, they asked him the way to the mushroom home. But the man almost laughed at them. How could he know where all the mushrooms in the forest were? And how could he know which was the home of these little girls? The poor girls had to continue their journey. They kept walking along any path that seemed familiar, but they couldn't find the way home. Lily kept thinking about what might happen if her parents accidentally threw away, broke, or lost the statuette before she could find her way back. Would she ever be able to return to her world? These were questions that even her friend didn't have answers to. Each time, Lily was taken by a wind from her home and brought to the mushroom field. But here in the forest, there was no wind to take her back to her parents. As they were tormented by these questions and both were scared, they suddenly had an idea. What if they made a big fire that produced a lot of smoke? Maybe someone would see them and help them find their way home. Excited by this thought, they quickly started gathering branches for the fire and found 2 stones to create sparks. But the stones didn't make sparks big enough to ignite the branches, and it started to drizzle. Poor girls, they started crying again. Walking along the path, crying, they suddenly encountered a dog who asked what had happened. When they finished explaining how they went to play in the forest and now couldn't find their way home, how they had asked a man but he laughed at them and couldn't help, and how they tried to make a fire but it started to rain, the dog smiled and said,
"Nothing is easier for me than to take you home. Wherever your home is, I can find it easily. Let me sniff you, then climb on my back and hold on tight. I will sniff the path you took. It might not be the shortest way to your home since you probably didn't come here by the shortest route, but I can smell your trail and find the way to your house. Come on, get on my back, carefully, so you don't fall. Are you both settled? Hold on tight. Here we go."
The dog, sniffing the path all the while, almost ran until they reached the mushroom house. You can't imagine the route they took. If someone had drawn their path, it would have looked like spirals, snails, and zigzags, a lot of extra distance covered. But their joy was immeasurable when they finally arrived home. They thanked the dog immensely for his help, marveled at how sometimes dogs are smarter than people, and rewarded the dog with a phenomenally tasty dinner. Lily was transported home by the wind as usual, and everything ended well. After this incident, Lily asked her parents to always take great care of her statuette, and no matter what, never to throw it away, never to break it, and always to keep it in a safe place. In the gentle embrace of the night, Lily's heart was filled with gratitude as she carefully held her beloved statuette. With each twinkle of the stars above, she sent out good thoughts to the entire universe from her heart brimming with love and gratitude.
The story and characters in this tale are fictional. The following historical truths are acknowledged. Pottery was independently discovered in various regions, with the oldest clay vessels in the world being associated with the Jomon culture in Japan, making them among the oldest pottery discoveries worldwide.